Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at DDev Plastiks.
Okay.
And they're a pretty big player over in India in the polymer compounding industry.
Yeah, definitely a company to watch.
So we're talking the materials going into power cables, solar panels, all that essential stuff.
Absolutely foundational for so many industries right now.
Exactly. And to help us break this all down, we've got an expert with us today
Glad to be here.
who can, help us navigate the world of polymers, what it all means for the Indian market.
The Indian market is really fascinating, especially with the government's push for infrastructure, the growing demand we're seeing for electric vehicles, renewable energy. It's a hotbed of activity over there.
For sure. And speaking of performance, DDev Plastiks, I was looking at their earnings report.
Yeah.
And they seem to be doing pretty well, like really well.
They are.
Even with, the unpredictable weather, the high transportation costs we've been seeing, they've managed to get to a debt-free status.
Huge advantage for them. That debt-free status gives them so much flexibility to invest and grow, which is crucial in a market as dynamic as India.
For sure. And the numbers, their revenue for the first half of this fiscal year, it's crossed 2,206 crore.
Wow.
We're talking over $1 billion US. And they're maintaining a healthy profit margin too.
Yeah, that 11% EBITDA margin for the half year is nothing to sneeze at. Essentially, for every euro 100 of revenue they rake in, they're pocketing 11 in profit. That's pretty darn good.
And I think something that helps them stand out is their specialization in XLPE compounds.
Right. The cross-linked polyethylene. It's like the magic ingredient for those high-quality power cables everyone needs.
And with the government pushing initiatives like the Pradhan Mantri Suryodaya Yojana.
Exactly.
To boost solar energy, that demand for those cables, it's just going to keep going up.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. And don't forget about the electric vehicles. Think about the kilometers of wiring needed for every single EV that hits the road. DDev Plastiks is sitting pretty to ride that wave for sure.
They are. They're projecting a 12% to 15% annual growth rate over the next 5 years, which is that's pretty ambitious, right?
Ambitious, but achievable, I'd say. They've got a diverse portfolio. They're not putting all their eggs in the XLPE basket. They're doing PVC compounds, plastic compounds, antifibrillation compounds, even those halogen-free, flame-retardant compounds are all over it.
So they're really spreading their risk. Smart move.
Definitely. They're serving a whole bunch of sectors, and they're even exporting to over 50 countries. It's a good strategy.
Now, what about the polymer market as a whole?
Well, polymer prices are kind of stable right now, but don't expect a huge drop unless oil and gas prices, the raw materials, take a serious dip. It all kind of hinges on that,
But, what about new players entering the market? Because I read Reliance Industries is planning this massive PVC complex.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one, for sure. Potentially a game changer.
Especially since, India imports a lot of its PVC resin right now.
Right. So Reliance stepping in, it could boost the domestic supply, potentially stabilize prices even, which could be good for DDev Plastiks, right? More stable raw materials, better access.
Right.
But of course, there's the flip side, right? More competition, maybe some downward pressure on prices. It's a wait and see kind of situation,
Yeah, for sure. A double-edged sword.
Exactly. And that makes me wonder, how will DDev Plastiks stay ahead in this landscape that keeps shifting? They did mention some plans for expanding their capacity, though, right?
Yeah, they just got some land in Valad to ramp up production of XLPE and HFFR compounds.
Okay, yeah.
And they want to fund all of that through their own earnings.
Smart. Really highlights their strong financial position, doesn't it? They're not relying on outside loans or anything, just using their own profits to grow. That's a good sign.
Yeah, no, definitely. But, with the global shipping costs being so high, are they mainly focusing on the domestic market, or are they still pushing those exports?
It seems like they're, playing it smart and concentrating on the domestic market for now. Exports are a tough game with those sky-high freight rates. But the domestic XLPE segment, booming. We're talking 20% year-on-year growth. It makes sense for them to prioritize that while they wait for the global shipping to, calm down a bit.
Yeah, makes sense.
But they haven't completely written off the global market. They've mentioned some interest in the U.S. market, but of course that hinges on regulations and duties and all that jazz.
Yeah, those international waters can be tricky. But there was one thing that really jumped out at me. They've set this goal of hitting 5,000 crore turnover by FY30.
Whoa.
That's like almost 5 times their current revenue.
It's a bold goal, no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Reaching that kind of growth, it's going to take more than just riding the current wave. They're going to need to get strategic, really innovative.
Well, we'll have to dive into what that might look like in the next part of our deep dive.
Stay tuned, folks. It gets even more interesting.
But hey, don't forget to like and subscribe to catch all our deep dives. We've got new insights coming at you every single week.
We do.
So hit that button and join us for the next one.
Definitely worth it. Welcome back to our deep dive into DDev Plastiks.
Now, in the last part, we talked about DDev Plastiks' impressive performance financially.
Right.
But what really stood out was their ambition to reach a turnover of 5,000 crore by FY30. That's a huge jump from where they are now.
It is a massive target. To get there, they'll need to take a multi-pronged approach.
Right. It can't just be about riding the current market wave.
Exactly. Organic growth will definitely play a part. But to achieve that kind of leap, they'll have to look at new avenues, like new product lines.
Right.
Maybe even strategic acquisitions.
Speaking of new product lines, remember that 132 kV wire project?
Oh, yeah, that one.
Seems like that could be a real game changer for them.
Absolutely. Moving into higher voltage tech like that, if they pull it off, it could unlock some serious new markets for them.
But didn't we see there were some delays with that project?
Yeah, there have been some hiccups. Seems like their customers are so busy fulfilling their current orders that they haven't had the bandwidth to, collaborate on trials for the new 132 kV wire.
Huh. Interesting. So even in a booming market, things don't always go smoothly.
That's the reality, isn't it?
But hey, even with the delays, the fact that customers are interested in this new technology speaks volumes about the market and DDev Plastiks' potential.
No doubt about it. And it's not like they're putting all their eggs in one basket, right?
Yeah.
They're also working on other high voltage applications, exploring new markets like we talked about with the US.
Yeah.
They're not afraid to diversify and adapt.
And they're doing all this while staying financially strong.
Right.
Net debt-free gives them a lot of room to maneuver.
That's a massive advantage in this industry, Polymer compounding requires a lot of capital investment. Being debt-free means they can invest in R&D, expand capacity when they need to, weather any economic storms that come their way.
So whether it's a sudden drop in polymer prices or, increased competition from new players like Reliance, they're well equipped to handle it.
Precisely. And from what we've seen, they seem pretty prepared for these challenges. They're thinking ahead, looking for ways to stay ahead of the curve, which is always a good sign.
So they're not just reacting, they're anticipating the changes and making strategic moves.
Exactly. And one area where they could really up their game is strategic partnerships.
Okay.
Collaborations with key players in the cable industry.
Yeah.
Could really accelerate their product development, help them secure long-term contracts, give them valuable market insights.
Especially as they move into those higher voltage applications, those partnerships could be key.
Absolutely. Remember they mentioned that the 220 kV project would need collaborations with customers? It's not just about the tech. It's about understanding what the customer needs and working together to create solutions.
Building an ecosystem, not just selling a product.
Exactly. That could be a major differentiator for them in the long run. Gives them that competitive edge.
So it sounds like they're on the right track. But we got to be realistic.
Of course.
No business strategy is foolproof. What are some risks or challenges DDev Plastiks might face in the coming years?
Well, we've touched on a few already. The volatile raw material prices.
Yeah.
The increased competition, the unpredictable global shipping costs. Those are all just part of the game in this industry.
And we can't forget about potential regulatory hurdles.
Right.
Especially if they're serious about that U.S. expansion, navigating different regulations in different countries.
Yeah, that can be a real headache.
Could definitely slow things down.
Definitely. But I'd say the biggest challenge might be managing their own ambition.
How so?
Well, think about it. Scaling up production while maintaining quality.
Yeah.
Finding and keeping the right people. Making sure the organizational structure can handle rapid expansion.
Right.
Those are all crucial things, They can make or break a company, especially when you're aiming for exponential growth like DDev Plastiks.
Makes sense. Rapid expansion can put a strain on any organization.
For sure. It takes discipline, a clear vision, and a strong leadership team.
And it sounds like from what we've seen, DDev Plastiks has those things in place.
They seem to, yeah.
But it's something they'll have to manage very carefully if they want sustainable growth.
Absolutely. So for our listeners who might be looking at DDev Plastiks as an investment opportunity,
Yeah.
what are some key takeaways they should remember?
Good question.
Well, first of all, DDev Plastiks is operating in a high-growth market with really favorable conditions.
Right. India's infrastructure boom is the real deal.
It is, and DDev Plastiks is in a great position to benefit from it.
And they've consistently shown strong financial performance.
Yeah, consistently profitable, even with all the global challenges.
Definitely reassuring for investors.
And they're not afraid to innovate. They're putting money into R&D, expanding their product lines, exploring new markets. That's a forward-thinking approach, which is essential for long-term success.
But as with any investment, got to weigh those potential rewards against the risks.
Absolutely. No investment is without risks.
So potential investors should be aware of the potential headwinds.
Yeah, those fluctuating raw material prices, the competition, the global shipping issues, those are all things to keep in mind.
But they've shown they can be resilient, they can adapt.
And their debt-free status gives them a solid base to work from.
So it'll be interesting to see how they perform in the coming years.
DDev Plastiks is definitely one to watch.
Now, in the final part of our deep dive, we're going to take a wider view and see what DDev Plastiks' story tells us about the Indian polymer compounding sector as a whole and its place on the world stage.
Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive on DDev Plastiks. You know, we've spent the last two parts digging into their financials, their strategy, those ambitious growth goals they've set. Right. But now I want to, zoom out a bit.
Okay.
See where all of this fits in the bigger picture, you know?
Yeah, I think what's really interesting about DDev Plastiks is that their story isn't just about them.
Right.
It's about this bigger trend, like the rise of Indian manufacturing on a global scale.
Yeah, we hear a lot about India's IT sector booming. But manufacturing seems to be gaining some serious traction, too.
Absolutely. And it makes sense. India has this huge and growing domestic market.
Right.
A young and increasingly skilled workforce.
Yeah.
And the government is really pushing initiatives like Make in India to attract investment, boost domestic manufacturing. It's all coming together.
And DDev Plastiks' success in, this niche field of polymer compounding, it's a perfect example.
It really is.
They're not just competing on price. They're making high-quality, innovative products,
right,
meeting the needs of some pretty demanding industries.
Absolutely. And don't forget their global reach.
Right. They're already exporting to over 50 countries.
Exactly. Imagine if those global shipping costs stabilize.
Yeah.
They could really tap into markets like the U.S. The potential is huge.
It's like a glimpse into this future where Indian companies aren't just part of the global supply chain.
Right.
They're leading it, setting the standards, pushing the boundaries of innovation.
Exciting stuff, but, we got to be realistic.
Yeah.
There will be challenges along the way.
Of course.
Competition is fierce. Technology is constantly evolving. You never know what's going to happen with geopolitics, right? Always some curveballs.
Always those external factors that can throw things off track.
Exactly. But, DDev Plastiks focus on R&D, their commitment to those strategic partnerships, their careful approach to managing their finances, all of that.
Right.
It suggests they're in a good position to adapt and thrive, even with the challenges.
So they're really building a company for the long haul.
It seems that way.
Focused on sustainable growth, not just chasing quick profits.
That's a good sign for investors, right?
Yeah.
Shows a real commitment to their stakeholders.
Definitely. And they're not betting everything on one product or one market.
Right.
They're diversifying, building resilience into their business model.
Smart move. That kind of foresight, that strategic planning, it's crucial in today's world. Things change so fast.
So what does all this mean for our listeners out there? Whether you're thinking about investing, you're a business leader, or just someone curious about, the world around us, I think DDev Plastiks' story has some important lessons.
I agree. It shows that Indian manufacturing is a force to be reckoned with globally.
For sure.
It highlights how important innovation, strategic partnerships, and good financial management are in this ever-changing world.
Yeah.
And it's a reminder that even with all the uncertainty out there, there are companies that are not just surviving, but thriving.
Maybe DDev Plastiks will be the next big Indian multinational giant.
Right.
A household name like Tata or Reliance, they're definitely one to keep an eye on.
Definitely, definitely. Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into DDev Plastiks.
And we hope you found it insightful, got you thinking.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode.
Yeah, let us know what other companies or industries you'd like us to explore in future deep dives.
And don't forget to like and subscribe.
Yeah, hit that button.
For more deep dives into the companies and trends shaping our world.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.